So now here key constraints, the important one is primary key. So now we want to remember the primary key definition. Constraints declares a column or combination of columns whose values uniquely identify each row in a table. So this definition also we define in the concepts of keys. So primary key is a attribute or a column or set of attributes or set of columns whose values uniquely identify each row in a table. This column or the combination of columns is also known as the primary key of the table. Primary key constraint helps enforce of the data integrity automatically. It enforces data integrity automatically. So many times we discussed database management. Advantage is data integrity. So how we are going to achieve data integrity means by using key constraints. Okay, these primary key constraints helps to maintain the data integrity automatically. There are several rules that the primary key must follow. So normally you know some rules. So again I am going to repeat the rules again. There is only one primary key for each table. Only we have you have to define only one primary key. If you want to define second column, you can use combinedly together as a primary key. Okay, so don't use for separate two columns, two primary keys. Okay, so one primary key is single column or composite key it is. Okay, so that is called key constraint, primary key. Okay, so here the primary key consists of a column. This column must be unique. So once you define that must be a unique, it must not null. Okay, these 2 points you have to remember. So if the primary key consists of multiple columns, each combination of values in these columns must be unique. Suppose if we are combining the first name and last name of different persons, so if some persons having the same name and same family name, so then this we can say here there is a duplicate of data. So to avoid such situations, we are using some shortcodes for some persons. Okay, and we will write some other mechanism, or you can use a surrogate key mechanism. That is another concept. But here, so whatever the values you are using, composite values, that must be unique. Okay, so a primary key can be defined as the part of the columns definition. It consists of one column, consists of multiple columns. It has to be defined at the end of create table statement. So you see in the previous slide where we define the primary key at the end of the table, create table statement only we define. Okay, so just check here. So primary key we given at end of the table. Okay, so here there is a restriction on the data type because nowadays we are using NoSQL databases, so it will not support for all. Now this relational model, will not. There is some restriction. So here the data belongs to blob, club, array, and club. Okay. So here blob is nothing but binary large object, character large object, national character large objects. Okay. So just you can remember there is a restriction on the data type of the primary key column. It cannot be a blob, club, or national character large object. Okay, these are the rules you have to remember for key constraints. So now here you can see create table. The table name is logs, that means login ID. So log ID, and we are giving message. Log ID is integer type. So I am defining constraints not null and primary key. Okay, message character not null. Okay, this is a MS SQL. If you are using SQL server, you can define the primary key at the end of the create table. Okay, So here you can see I am going to define a primary key consists of more than one column. So this I written in SQL Server. Okay. So here order ID, product ID, and unit price, quantity, discount are the column names of table, order details. Okay. So I am defining two columns, composite key, composite primary key that contains order ID and product ID. These two must be unique. Okay. So this point you have to remember, unique. So combinedly together these two must be unique. Okay. So that's is the use of primary key. In the orders details table, see here we have a primary key consists of two columns, order ID, product ID here. So therefore the primary key constraint has to be defined at the table level. So only we took one primary key, but it is a composite primary key. So foreign key, you know that. So define relating two tables. Even I given so many examples. So use it to link two tables together. Foreign key is a field. One table that refers primary key in another table. Okay. So the table containing the foreign key is called the child table. The table containing the candidate key or primary key called the referenced or parent table. So now you can take two tables here, persons, orders table. This is the persons table and this is the orders table. So here person ID, last name, first name, age. This is the details of persons. And here order ID, order number and person ID. So order table contains person ID. This column and this column must be the same. So here we chosen this as a primary key P, and this we are chosen as a foreign key F. Okay, so this we can say child, this we can say parent table. Okay, so that means we are relating this table, or we are giving a reference that person ID is to contact the table persons table. Okay, this is called referential integrity constraint, or we can say it is foreign key constraint. Okay, how? Here you can see create table. So orders. So we are defining foreign key where in order table. Okay, so initially you have to define persons table and you have to define primary key and you have to save in the database. So in orders table we are giving order ID, not null primary key, order number, not null constraint, person ID. So here we are applying foreign key references, persons table, person ID. Okay, here this person ID and the person ID in the persons table must be similar, the column name. Okay, and we are referring, so that's why it is called a referenced value or parent value. We are referring the parent table persons. So this is the definition for defining the constraint foreign key. Okay, so here you can see SQL is easy. So in alter table statement, even we can apply these constraints. Alter table statement also alter table orders. If you want to apply the constraint on foreign key on the same tables, persons and orders, alter table orders, add foreign key. Okay, so here the name of the column name and references which table it referring, persons, person ID. Okay, so table persons we are going to make relationship with orders. Okay, so throw this column name person ID. Okay, so now there is a relationship established between persons and orders. Okay, so this is the use of foreign key constraint.